Eating plant-based vegan food is one of the greatest things we can do, and I do understand that some find it a challenge to make it a real permanent part of their life. It's those difficult times, right? A long day at work, you're driving home, and you just want to turn into the fast food store and grab something to eat. But of course, there's nothing that's vegan. Those are the moments. Those moments when you're at a picnic or a family gathering that can really be a challenge. Well, if you'd like to learn how to overcome those challenges and make eating vegan plant-based a part of your life, I'm available for one-on-one coaching. Please visit mindfulvegan.com/coaching for more details. Welcome to the Mindful Vegan Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Dillon. This show is all about vegan food, and specifically, how is it that you bring vegan food into your life? Well, today's guest, Dr. Will Tuttle, is the author of the very successful book, The World Peace Diet, and we're going to talk with him in a little bit and get his ideas on bringing vegan food into your life. We gather with family more times than not around food. I mean, think about it. Somebody's birthday party, holidays, just general gatherings around special occasions, anniversaries, or just to get together. We do that, and there's food there. So as you eat vegan, what are some of the things that you can do to strengthen and deepen your path and your commitment to eating vegan food when you do go to these places? Well, obviously, one of the best things you can do is host the party yourself, right? Because then you fully know everything that's there because you're providing it. But if you're going over someone's home, it is always worth a simple phone call. Calling up the person who's hosting the party and just letting them know, hey, just so that you're aware, I'm eating vegan now, plant-based, which means I don't do any eggs or dairy or cheese, and obviously no meat products. That can let the host know well in advance that you're eating vegan. Now, what's great about that is many hosts really get caught off guard at the last minute. They've done all this work, so help them out a little bit and just let them know that you're coming there and this is the way that you're eating. Now, one of the best things that you can do in that situation is take some pressure off of them right away and let them know, I would be more than happy to bring a dish over. Now, you may be saying to yourself, but I'm traveling. I'm not going to be able to make a dish. We're flying there, or whatever the situation may be. But you could always stop at a restaurant and get some takeout of a dish. You could always stop at a grocery store. A lot of them have great salad bars where you can pick up a lot of fantastic vegan food. In other words, think about, how do I make this happen instead of, oh my goodness, this is a problem. Because it's really not a problem, right? It's simply a puzzle that you can put together. Let's face it, puzzles can be fun. Problems, not so fun. So look at all the problems that come up simply as a puzzle, an opportunity to figure out a great solution. Let's get into today's interview with Dr. Will Tuttle, and I began the interview asking him about his journey to eating vegan food, which began many, many years ago. Let's hear what he had to say.
Yeah, the reason I began eating vegan food or went vegan, for me, I was a vegetarian because I lived at the farm in Tennessee. I think that was sort of the deciding moment. You know, I was born and raised in Concord, Massachusetts, in a typical family eating the usual meals, and there was no way, I don't think, really, for me to question that. There was no concept that you could survive if you didn't eat meat and dairy. You'd just die. You'd die of a protein deficiency, and no one questioned it at all. But when I went away to college in the 70s, I remember hearing about vegetarians, and it was during the Vietnam War era, and people were protesting the war and questioning violence in our society, inequality, and so forth. And so vegetarianism was beginning to impact people as a way of greater social justice, because so much of the grain we're feeding to animals while people starve. I remember Francis Moore LePay's book came out, and people were talking about eating lower in the food chain, combining food so you could get the right amino acid profile and so forth. So that was a little bit on my radar. And then when I left home right after college, I went on with my brother a spiritual pilgrimage. We decided to try to walk all the way to California. And we got as far as Tennessee, basically. And in Tennessee, we were for a while at a place called The Farm, which was the largest hippie commune in the world back then. And we stayed there for a few weeks. And the example of 900 people that were all vegetarians, and they were actually vegans, but no one had heard of that word. Back then, we never heard of that word, but we said we were vegetarians, or they said they were vegetarians, and there was no meat, dairy, or eggs, and even people would avoid leather as well, and they did it because of compassion for hungry people, and also, really, I think compassion for animals, not wanting to cause them suffering. There was people were starting to talk about the brutality of the slaughterhouses and things, and I remember that was it for me.
So from that point, when you're there on the farm, was that was it? That was the beginning, and from that point forward, you were vegan, or did that path continue and change for you as you moved along?
I never ate meat again in my life, actually, since 1975, when I went vegetarian, because of that. And then going vegan was about 5 years later. I was in San Francisco at that point, and I learned more about the routine abuse of hens and cows for dairy products and eggs, and I went vegan. Although it wasn't such an abrupt change like it was for vegetarian. I mean, I went from one day to the next. Now I'm a vegetarian when I learned and really got it and had this example. Whereas with veganism, I think and I've heard it's a lot like this for a lot of people. It was more of a process. I learned about it. I sort of stopped buying and eating any dairy and eggs, and then gradually phased out other things, leather and whatever. So that was it. And for me, it was basically the reasons were I just didn't want to cause suffering to other beings, and that's probably still my motivating force. But I'm very aware of the wonderful side effects, because I haven't been to a doctor now in over 45 years, something like that. So that's been really a wonderful side effect for sure.
Okay, just in that one statement now, we could go on for hours, because this is fascinating. Here you are with 900 people, and you, in a sense, you're in this complete support, this community that is like-minded and doing this. So there's a great structure that you can work with. But what happened? How did you continue that when you and your brother continued on your journey and you left that group? How did you keep it as a part of your life? Because I think that people that are dealing with this on their own, maybe they don't even have that community to start with. What is it that allowed you to hold on to this as important for you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because I feel like I'm so blessed that when I was in college, I started really questioning all the official stories of our society and the violence in our society. And so when I left home with my brother, there was really this break. I made like a definite break from my family, from the workaday world, for everything. We were just out there walking and meditating. We walked from the farm. We left there and we walked to Alabama because we heard there was a Zen center there. And so we moved into the Zen center, and then I was just meditating for 8 or 10 hours a day, every day. That's all I did, was just sit. And I figured that's my job. Other people can go to work from 9 to 5. I'm going to sit here from 9 to 5 in meditation, actually from 6 a.m. till 5 o'clock at night. I would just meditate. And it was, I was a young guy. I was only 22. I had a lot of energy, so I would get up, take a couple hours, and just run because I was doing so much sitting. But I just really was on fire to attain enlightenment. I wanted to wake up, and I didn't care about anything else. And anyway, these meditation centers, nobody ate meat, but they were eating dairy. That's the thing. So since everybody was eating dairy, and it was also new to me, and kefir and yogurt and making your own, and this was all kind of exotic, really, for me back in the 70s when I'd never had those kinds of things as a kid. And so I thought it's maybe healthy to have that. And then I moved to San Francisco, and I was still living in meditation centers, Tibetan and Zen. Again, they were vegetarian centers, but people did eat dairy and eggs. So I didn't really question that. But then when I moved out of those meditation centers onto my own, I did more research, and that's when I went vegan. So for me, I think I was very sort of unusually blessed in the sense that I really made a strong break. The good thing was when I was at these meditation centers, I was reading. I was reading all these ancient books from China and India. And there was so much support, for compassion for animals in the ancient Buddhist and Hindu and yogic texts, not to eat meat and eat sattvic foods and all these things. I was always thinking about these things and talking, and I started fasting. I went on all these fasting retreats. I was like, I really tried everything. I mean, I went without food for weeks at a time and did all kinds of stuff. I wanted to purify. I wanted to wake up. I just felt like I just have to find out the truth about myself, and it's not going to happen if I just go along with the cultural program, which is based on keeping people asleep, essentially. So that was for me. That was that motivation. I think actually that was helpful.
With your background as a Zen monk and with all this practice and the sitting and the mindfulness and the meditation, can you speak to how others can use mindfulness, use meditation as a way to connect with eating vegan, to going plant-based, and how that can support them?
Yeah, that's to me, it's been the foundation of everything. If we're not aware and mindful of our thoughts and feelings and what's propelling us to do what we're doing, it's like we're just on autopilot. We're just basically being driven by a cultural program that's been injected into us against our will. It's not in our best interests. For me, meditation is extremely important because when I sit quietly and let my mind come back to it's a more natural state of awareness and be aware of my breath, then I can see the thoughts arising, and I can see that I'm not these thoughts, I'm not this body, I'm not these feelings. If I identify with this physical body or these thoughts or feelings, then I'm identifying with what is not what I truly am. And I'm just out of touch, with the purpose of living, to continue eating animal foods. If everybody was really rational, we'd all be vegan because it's totally rational not to eat animal foods. It's bad for our health. It's terrible for the environment. It's devastating to animals, wildlife, ecosystems, future generations, slaughterhouse workers. We can easily see that rationally. But the rational mind, if it's divorced from and isn't serving a higher knowing, the spiritual wisdom that sees deeply the interconnectedness of life, it becomes something that really becomes very irrational. We do things that are totally not in our best interest or in anyone's best interest. So that's why I think meditation is so important. But I also know that not everyone wants to meditate. So I don't push it on people. I would rather see people go vegan, and then out of that, they'll be drawn perhaps to meditation.
As you talk about the being programmed and kind of that cog in the wheel, so to speak, that we see this. And so as somebody discovers this and they say, all right, yes, rationally, I agree, this is it, and this is a path that I now want to choose. When they do that, they're stepping away from the way that they have been doing this. And also at the same time, they're stepping away from most likely the majority of people in their life who are also one of those cogs in the wheel, just walking that same path of not questioning. That moment for a lot of people is a struggle. And I hear a lot of people will say like, oh, I don't want to make others uncomfortable with this. And what would you offer to somebody to say like, yeah, this is okay. Like you can do this. What's some encouragement that you would offer people for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, to me, the realization that I'm not here to just please other people. I'm here with a mission. I'm here with a purpose to grow and to awaken spiritually, intellectually, and so forth, and to learn and to be an agent of positive social change. So once we see that each one of us has a reason for living beyond just being a consumer or being accepted by other people, there's nothing, that's not a reason to be alive. We have a deeper reason, and I think it's really important for us to cultivate within our consciousness a sense of connectedness to something beyond just pleasing people and buying things, to see that we have a purpose. And if we have a purpose, that purpose must be not only to grow ourselves and to mature and awaken and liberate ourselves, but also to contribute to creating a better world.
This way of thinking and this philosophy is very rooted in like the mindfulness and the meditation, but do you have other influences as well that you feel that made a difference?
I think I was lucky in the sense that I was born in Concord, Massachusetts, where Thoreau and Emerson's words, I think, just still echoed in Walden Pond, where I learned to swim. And Emerson said, "People long to be settled. Only to the degree that they are unsettled is there any hope for them." And I think that's, in a way, is our mission as vegans, in a sense, is to unsettle people, not in a spiteful way or not in an angry way, to do it in a very loving way, just by our example, to help people. It's by being unsettled, by getting out of the rut, getting out of the robotic program that's been forced upon us against our will from the time we're little infants by forces we trust completely, and to just realize it's not that anyone is bad or doesn't like us. It's just simply we've all inherited an obsolete food ritual and food program. And this is so powerful because food is our most intimate connection with our society from a ritualistic point of view. And rituals are the primary way that any society transmits its values from generation to generation. And so questioning the food rituals in any society is questioning the core of that culture. That's why people are just at a very deep level. It's sort of in the marrow of our bones. We just don't want to do it. No, I'm not going to. Because, going back to tribal times, if someone said, I'm not going to eat the food of the tribe, that was unthinkable. That means you're not in the tribe anymore. Get out of here, go die. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be rejected by the tribe and go off alone and die. So we have to understand. But the thing is, I guess, on the spiritual path, as Joseph Campbell talked about, the hero's journey, it's always about leaving home. It's about going out on a journey and leaving and then coming back to the tribe with gifts that we can share. And that's what I think going vegan is. It's basically saying, okay, I'm going to take this journey and I'm going to explore another way of living, but don't worry, I'm going to come back with gifts in my hands to give all of you. We can come back with the gift of greater compassion, awareness, mindfulness, health, freedom, creativity. And not that we're any better than anybody, but like any authentic journey of awakening, not only helps us, it helps everyone at a deeper, more enriched, and more free level, essentially.
So we return back from this journey that we've gone on, and we now have these gifts, and we come back to the tribe, and we are now living this new life. Oftentimes, what I hear from people as they're now understanding this and they're walking this new path is those that they return back to, the tribe, aren't interested in doing this. They have no desire to do this. There's some resistance. And what advice do you have for people to accept that, to be okay with that? Or do you feel like, no, they really should convince the tribe? Should they just, what's the best option for the person that's now gone on that journey to be at peace with the journey that they've taken, that maybe others won't take that journey with them?
Right. So I think it's important to realize that the vegan journey, in a sense, is a never-ending journey, and I'm right and everybody else is wrong. That's shallow understanding of veganism. Vegan, I think, really, it's an ongoing, never-ending path of transformation and refinement and purification of consciousness. And so making the first step, which is moving to a vegan way of living in the outer world in our behavior, is wonderful. I mean, I think it's a tremendous, great gift to our society, to ourselves, and to everyone, to animals, future generations. However, I think we make a mistake, and our movement, I think, has been making this mistake, that's it. That's all there is to it. And I think it's important to realize that that's step one, but there's step two and step 3 and 4. But step 2, I would say, the next major step is to now work on ourselves more so that our inner attitudes are vegan as well as our outer behavior. And so what does that mean, our inner attitudes are vegan? That means that we no longer look with an eye of judgment or criticism or blame at other people. We don't have this sense that they're the problem, and I have to change them, because when we have that basic orientation, it just creates resistance and anger and frustration on our part, typically. So it's an excruciating journey, in a sense. I mean, we have to work with our own program. The animal agriculture program is one of disconnectedness, of suppression of the sacred feminine part of consciousness, of numbing ourselves, desensitizing ourselves, competing, dominating, exploiting, oppressing. And we're all trained to do that. And through the meals that we're eating, to see other beings as objects, to be used as commodities. And even if we go vegan, we still have those attitudes inside of us. So the greatest gift we can give, I think, to the world is going vegan, not only in the outer level, but on the inner level, where we cultivate consciously an attitude of respect and compassion and kindness for all animals, including the human animals that we're interacting with all the time, and learn to listen to them and learn to share our experience in a way that we're just telling the truth. By doing that, the great irony is that I think that's actually the way that we affect the most number of people in a powerful way, is by working on ourselves.
Well, as somebody who travels, because you do a lot of public speaking, you're going all over the world, do you have a favorite vegan restaurant that you could share?
We love vegan restaurants in general when we're traveling, and we lived on the road for 17 years in an RV with no house at all, and then plus we've been traveling internationally to South America and Africa and Asia and the Middle East and Europe and Australia, New Zealand, and everywhere, and we've done it all as vegans, and it's really not difficult. I think it's important to realize that there's an old saying: if you're 99% committed to something, it's difficult, but if you get 100% committed, then a lot of the difficulties kind of fade away. Mm-hmm. And so for us, the difficulty is more finding non-GMO oils and things. So we really don't like to support Monsanto. I like the Loving Hut restaurant chain. It's actually the largest chain of vegan restaurants in the world, and we've eaten at Loving Huts in Australia and in Europe and Canada, all over the United States. And I love the Loving Hut restaurants because not only are they vegan in the food, they're also have a tendency toward being organic, but they're definitely non-GMO. And I've been to a lot of vegan restaurants where, unfortunately, when I say, well, what kind of oil do you use in your cooking? And they say, well, we just use soy oil. And is it organic? No, it's not organic. And so vegan restaurants that are using non-organic soybean oil or cottonseed oil, vegetable oil, which is, unfortunate. It's happening a lot. I think as vegans, we need to go to a deeper level and buy and support not only vegan, but organic, as much as we can, veganic agriculture, which is based on compassion and kindness to ecosystems and to animals and to ourselves. And so I like the Loving Hut because of that, and also because essentially the Loving Hut chain was founded as a spiritual practice by the people who are doing it, and they do it not to make money. They do it just to help the world and to help animals. They're one of the great examples that give me hope in humanity. That we have people that are so loving and caring that they don't put the dollar first. They put kindness and compassion and caring first. And so the Loving Hut is really my favorite chain of restaurants, and they're all over the place.
Do you have a recipe that you could share?
My wife, Madeline, is from Switzerland, and I just chose this recipe because it's a Swiss recipe, and it translates as onion pie. And it wasn't traditionally vegan; it was vegetarian, because traditionally they would use some dairy. But you can easily make it with tofu and make it vegan. She has quite a few cooking videos on YouTube. We have a video channel on YouTube, and pretty much everything that we're eating is there. We have usually every morning we have a green smoothie. And so she has a video on that and the ingredients, fruits and greens and so forth. And then pretty much every day for lunch we have a wrap, like basically a big salad with lots of sprouts and greens and vegetables of various kinds, tomatoes and cucumbers and so forth, and usually some tempeh in a whole wheat tortilla. At home she makes tortillas from scratch sometimes too. We have a video on that. And then for dinner we usually have some kind of a grain or starch dish with it's cooked. So breakfast and lunch are more uncooked, and then dinner's more cooked with vegetables and grains. And for us, that's a really wonderful way to just get plenty of calories and all the nutrients, and it's delicious and really so good. And so the onion pie is one example of one of the meals we might have for dinner.
Your book has been a bestseller on Amazon and actually has been translated into numerous languages, I understand. Could you tell us a little bit about what it's about, the World Peace Diet?
The basic idea in a nutshell is that we've all been born into a culture that essentially forces us from the time we're little infants to participate in these mealtime rituals that we call that are very powerful in determining our society and ourselves, and they're not to our advantage. Eating animal foods is portrayed as delicious, nutritious, benevolent, healthy, and in fact, it's absolutely the opposite of that. It's malevolent, it's devastating, it's cruel, violent, disease-promoting. And so the World Peace Diet gives the big picture of our culture's mistreatment of animals for food, and basically demonstrates from the point of view of anthropology and sociology and history, as well as nutrition, sociology, psychology, spiritual teachings also, that the greatest gift we can give to the world is to bring our lives more into alignment with our values and move toward a plant-based way of living, a vegan plant-based way of eating and living, because animal-based foods are not only devastating to our ecosystems, to our society, and to our culture, and to our health, but also to the inner landscape of our consciousness. When we look at the basic attitudes that are required for us to eat animal foods, of disconnectedness and denial, and of might makes right, and of commodification of life, of privilege and elitism, these attitudes, materialism, these are not in our best interest. These are what drive war, slavery, racism, sexism, and most human justice problems come out of these deeply seated, deeply rooted attitudes of violence towards animals that we're eating from the time we're little infants. So if we want to create a world of peace and freedom and justice and sustainability, and there's nothing stopping us from that. We live on a planet that's completely abundant, that's beautiful, There's nothing stopping us from creating a world of harmony and kindness, except one thing, which is eating animal foods. If we insist on eating animal foods, we will have a society of endless war and terrorism and injustice and misery and disease and violence and hunger and starvation. And it'll get worse and worse until we go extinct. There's no question about it. And what we're doing is we're creating a world of terrorism, misery, war, disease, and violence and despair for billions of animals. And we pretend that that's fine. And it's absolutely, their suffering is to them as significant to them as our suffering is to us. And for us to engage in cruelty and abuse to these animals and to other human beings, it has huge consequences. And so it's essential that we make an effort to understand the ramifications of our food choices and to make an effort to be part of the solution rather than be part of the problem. And that's something that everyone can make an effort to do and everyone can contribute to in their own unique way.
Through the research and the work that you do, you've been uncovering a lot of the information on the historical side of bringing food together and the animal side of it as well. Can you talk a little bit about that and share what it is that you've been discovering?
It's important for us to understand that around 10,000 years ago, when we started in what is today the Eastern Mediterranean region of the world in Iraq, and we started owning animals as property for food. We call that herding. When we started herding animals, wild sheep, wild goats, and then later wild cows and other animals, that's when we really created a revolution in the way we're living. And it was not, it's led to the first war, to slavery, to patriarchy, the domination of women, to the role model of young boys to emulate as the hard, tough, disconnected male, and that this culture, this warlike patriarchal culture, spread gradually throughout the Mediterranean region and has spread basically from there all over the world. And we're raised in that same society. We're still eating the same way. And it's completely obsolete. For whatever reason people did that 10,000 years ago, fine. But there's no reason for us to do it today. It's completely counterproductive. And to understand that the call today is to resensitize ourselves, and that means connecting with what I refer to as Sophia in the World Peace Diet, the sacred feminine dimension of consciousness, which is the aspect that we all have, whether we're men or women, that naturally yearns to love and protect and nurture life. And that animal agriculture, being forced to eat animal foods and enslaving animals, that whole practice of abuse of animals represses Sophia in everyone. And to also remember that it's female animals that are by far the most seriously abused in all animal agriculture, because they're impregnated against their will, their babies are stolen. It's really not just humans abusing animals, but more accurately, in many ways, it's men abusing female animals. And if we, again, want to create a world of peace and freedom and equality and justice, then we can do that, but it certainly means that we question the violence against female animals and that is manifested throughout animal agriculture. And to actually eat that stuff and feed it to our children exposes a disconnect that makes our efforts for peace and justice for ourselves completely ironic, because we just want for ourselves what we're refusing to give to others. And so the beauty underlying all of this is that this is very good news. We can understand this. We can see that this is an obsolete system. We can let go of it. We can eat foods that are much more healthy, much more sustainable, delicious, and we can create communities of sanity. And that's, I think, what you're doing with this mindful vegan website, and the work you're doing is to help create an online community of sanity, of wisdom, of caring, of mindfulness. And I think that's a beautiful thing. All of us can, in some way, contribute to living more mindfully.
Well, I mentioned earlier that you do tour all over the world, and if the listeners would like to stay in touch with you, find out where you are touring when you're coming to a community near them, what would be the best way for them to stay up to date with what you're doing?
I think the best thing probably is to go to our website, which is worldpeacediet.com, And you can just see there our tour schedule under upcoming events, where we are. Right now we're in Massachusetts, and we're traveling. We're doing actually a 12-month tour right now, and we're on the road in our old RV. We're based in California now, but we're traveling this whole year doing a lecture tour, and then we'll be going over to Asia right following that. So, yeah, go to willpeacediet.com, and from there you can go to our training program that we have if anyone's interested in going more deeply into these ideas. We have the World Peace Diet Facilitator training program where people understand, make an effort to understand these ideas and then go on to have study groups and be coaches, or to create movies. Kip Anderson, who created Cowspiracy, went through our training, and there's been a lot of people who have gone through our training to go on to do more things in the spreading of the vegan message. So all that information is there. We have the links to our YouTube channel also, and we really love to stay in touch with people. If anyone has any questions, they can contact me through that website. And I really appreciate the work you're doing, and I appreciate everyone who's listening. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for being here, Will. I really appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much.
If you would like easy-to-click links for everything that Will just shared, you can go to mindfulvegan.com. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to go to this blog post, you can go directly there to mindfulvegan.com/75, because this is episode number 75. Thank you so much for being here and listening to the Mindful Vegan podcast. And as always, go enjoy some great vegan food. Take care now.